First of all, Patrick, thank you very much for agreeing to do this video with us. We did meet actually at the Shopware Partner Day, pre all the COVID stuff, which seemed like a very long time ago. But you did I saw your keynote.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the very last bigger conference I went to, because I think it's organized around January, right? And then 2 months later, the whole globe was closed, and I was not expecting. And I remember I got my gimbal and I made this after movie. It was so fun, and I was so excited about the rest of the year. And then suddenly, boom! Yeah, so
all changed. It seems like a very long time ago. I was thinking about it the other day. It's it was fun, and I missed it this year. Although I thought the virtual partner day was pretty good actually, and the virtual networking I quite enjoyed.
Yep.
So look, thank you very much for joining. I know it's been a very busy few months. You've spun out from Devante, you've raised investment. Have you done all the kind of admin-y stuff, and is that all laid to rest now, and is it all focused on the product, or are you still got some of those tasks outstanding?
Yeah, so actually we are very lucky, or I'm very, very lucky, because one of our co-founders, Bartek Roszkowski, he's a COO, and he's a third time or 3 times entrepreneur, right? He did 3 exits already. He is a bit older than us, and he got much more experience on this admin stuff. So fortunately, I can focus now on sales, marketing, and managing everything. And then Filip Lakowski, who is the CTO, he's managing the product. So we have a very good competencies that are complementary to each other. So I think that the whole team is working very well together. And I think once we finalize the spin-off from Devante, we signed the VC papers. It was very, very easy afterwards for me to focus on the things I really like, because signing papers, admin work, this is something I really don't enjoy doing, and Bartek seems to really like it. We are also now doing some plans on when should we raise again. We finished the Y Combinator batch. We did the summit. Everything is going well, and a lot of things are going into the right direction. So the question is, should we bootstrap or should we do Series A, looking at our growth? So this is the conversations we are having in the meantime. But in general, yeah, I can focus on the things I really like.
And what's your favorite bit? Do you like the sales, or you like your
I love sales. I mean, and the thing is, I've been doing sales for the past 10 years, right? And since 2012, I was working mainly in the e-commerce. I joined Vivino. It's a wine. It's an app for scanning the wine, right? Yeah. And I was very early employee. I think I was employee number 4 on the business side. Heini and his team, they had this very tiny corner office in IT University in Copenhagen. They got it as a part of some kind of grant. And yeah, we were all sitting there together and trying to figure out. And imagine that back in 2013, I wrote my thesis about how Vivino will monetize. And I wrote about them becoming one of the world's biggest marketplaces when you can buy wine, and because they're gonna have so much information about the users, like they know every single wine I scan, and they know how I rate, what kind of pricing I buy wine for. And this is what I wrote in the thesis. And the latest series they had was exactly for that, right? So building and finishing this huge marketplace, and finally going full on e-commerce. They already run it, but now most of the investments are gonna go there. They have the database, they have the know-how. So it was quite funny.
That's really interesting. I've always thought that is like StockX for wine is got to have a lot of legs, and not just wine, right? Anything collectible where you've got lots of people collecting stuff has always been a really interesting project, I think.
Exactly.
So you've got Vue Storefront. I think it's got a really nice sort of story. For the benefit of those people who don't know, can you just tell us a little bit about, a short snapshot of the story behind Vue Storefront?
Yeah, sure. So we've been a part of Devante, which is e-commerce agency, basically doing implementations. And Devante was a long partner of Magento. I think when I joined, they've been already working with them for almost 6 years. And I've been hired as a sales, and at some point I realized customers complaining so heavily about the front-end experience. They were like, can you guys optimize it? I would sell optimization package, whatever. Developers would work on it, no results, no results. Money coming in, no results, right? So clients got really frustrated, and then because of my background in the native apps and Android, and for Android and iOS, I was like, oh, maybe you want to build an app, right? So then I was speaking with some of the other partners, because Devante is not doing the native apps. And then when they would see the estimate, they were like, oh my God, but this is insane. And then in the same time, we still need to have our e-commerce site up and running, right? Because I can't just kill it. You can search for it and things like that. So then in the same time, I was following how the PWA development was going on, right? So you could see, Uber, Tinder, Pinterest, and in the same time, suddenly AliExpress, Alibaba, Flipkart, OLX, they all came up with the PWA. I showed it to developers, like, oh, you're crazy. Look at how much money they have. It's going to be crazy expensive. But then, Philip was this very young and energetic developer. And Philip, was developer by passion. He started when he was 15 years old. So he said, let me try to do a proof of concept, right? And at first, he tried to do it in React.js. And he said, well, that took longer than I expected. There is this thing I heard about called Vue.js, right? Apparently, it's easier and lighter. So he did that, and he did POC 3 times faster. And this is, 100% coincidence. Maybe if he would knew React better, we would be something else, right? But then we finished with this concept. We basically called it, well, it's Storefront, is based on Vue. Let's call it Vue Storefront. So that's how we created the name. And the first time I had the chance to speak to the customers again that were complaining about Magento frontend, I told them, hey, we have this Vue Storefront thing. It's PWA, and I would do the pitch about what PWA is. Mm-hmm. And then we started getting the first clients going. And after some time, by using it only inside Devante, together with Philip, we were like, hey, let's open source it. Like, it's not like we're gonna get millions of dollars from Devante because it's an agency, so it's pure cost to develop it. And I think we created something nice. Customers like it. Our developers love it. Let's open source it, right? So again, like, we just open sources. Let's kind of forget about this. And I think 2 weeks later, Philip came to me and said, hey, dude, like, there is like 600 stars on GitHub. Like, what are GitHub stars, right? It's like, yeah, it's this, appreciation from developers that you did something nice. Okay, nice. Let's make a Slack. I want to talk with them, right? Then we created a free Slack account, told the people that is there, and suddenly, 300 developers are on Slack and everyone is talking. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Right, so that was the beginnings. Afterwards, when more people were coming in, we made an advantage that we could still travel, right? So back in 2018 and 2019, I think in total we did around 25 or 28 hackathons, something like that, all over the globe, right? And we would organize hackathons in the way that there would be a partner, let's say in the UK, in Germany. We even did one in New York. We will tell them, hey, like, we're gonna come and do it for free. It's gonna be Philip, it's gonna be myself, we're gonna be some other guys. Can you get the venue? And can we get beers? And can we get pizza? That's all we need for developers, right? And then we would just say, hey, there was a hackathon over there, posted on Slack organically. And sometimes we would have, 30 people coming, and we would make a hackathon topic. Hey, let's work on payment integrations. Hey, let's work on that. And this is how it started. And I think because we never really thought about making Vue Storefront a real business and making money out of it. We just focused so much on developer experience and product that we managed to build that community, which was fully based on trust. And after some time, we just realized, hey, this is really good. And suddenly we get enterprises to use your open source product. And the second you see enterprises using your product, you're like, this must have a real value for them. Let's talk with those guys. And then it's typical. You go to the customers and, it's early adopters. Usually you have very good connection to those people because you want to help them. So there was Jonathan Ribas from Zadig and Voltaire. There were people from Tallywhale and from some other enterprises that helped us to understand what is really annoying for them at Vue Storefront. and what they would be willing to pay for if we could do that for them, right? So in most cases, integrations, it was very hard for them to figure out how to integrate things in headless, because Vue Storefront was one of the very first companies that actually went there and said, only front end, nothing else. No CMS connected, nothing, just the front end. And the second one was deployment, because before, all of those companies, some were on Magento Cloud, some were using the community version and did their own hosting, and back and front and all together. And suddenly we go to them, no, you can't do that. Like it has to be different, and the setup has to be different, because the needs are different, and people struggle with that. So first of all, as we started to think of our enterprise version and how we could possibly monetize, it was cloud. And then it was the integrations.
Well, that leads me, next point. That the thing I get asked about a lot is why would I do PWA? What are the benefits to me as a merchant? And so, do you have a few set things that you go through with people? Do you find it slightly different depending on the use case?
No, to be honest, I think everyone is getting the same pitch now, and the first most important aspect is improving user experience, right? And that means a lot, because for user experience, you will have the design, right? And the UI itself, how your users will be using desktop and how they will use mobile is totally different thing, right?
Yeah.
And this is why I, for example, like people in the company are already laughing at me that I am Mr. Bottom navigation bar, but I just love the concept, because I was at the native apps business so much. I never saw anyone doing hamburger menu on search on the top. It makes no sense. Like
I'm totally with you. It makes much.
If I have a phone, this is iPhone 10, I think, right? So if I want to reach the top, it's impossible. It's like I need the second finger, right? And if I have everything here, right, it's so easy.
I saw you mentioned this. I think it was at the Shopware Partner Day.
Yes.
And I was like, it's one of those things that looks so obvious when you look at it. But even now, I still, some people love it. Some of our clients love it, and others are like, no, I want the old, the bar at the top. It's quite
but show it to the users, and very often the best thing is like do like simple A/B test just of your homepage, and let them to click stuff and ask them what was easier, and 99% will tell you, well, bottom navigation bar, because I didn't have to use my second hand.
Yeah.
Right. So this is one of those things, and another one is of course performance. But I think right now people probably had much higher expectations of how PWA will impact the performance, and the fact like how Lighthouse was measuring it was also not that good, right? If you compared, I don't know, web page speed tears or GMX, like how the results are there versus Lighthouse, you would always get much better score. The problem with Lighthouse was like they didn't really check like how the site loads after the users are coming back to it, right? Because you have caching, service workers, all of those things. They would just check the first load. And you also, and we spent so much time trying to figure this out. And we had customers that would go with Magento site, and performance on mobile would go from 40 to 50. So maybe not such a huge uplift, because everyone wanted like 90 plus. I think it's close to impossible without doing a lot of hacks with the e-commerce site and plugins and marketing and analysis. It's super hard, and I think everyone should be satisfied with 60 to 70. But in general, we really tried a lot to optimize it, and we saw that with Vue Storefront 1, it was very tough because we focused so much on Magento, right? And Vue Storefront next, from the day one, we were like, this must be like performance-oriented architecture, and this is how we called it, right? So we already see a huge difference between Vue Storefront 1 and Vue Storefront next, how we call it right now. It will be a general Vue Storefront, basically. So we've spent almost 16 months rewriting everything, and as we were rewriting this, we also had to make a decision which backend should we focus on as a role model, right? So we did a research, Salesforce, obviously Magento, Shopify, BigCommerce, Elastic Path, and then Commerce Tools. And when we compared the performance of API responses, how the architecture was done and stuff, Commerce Tools was just the best. So we decided, okay, if we're gonna do it on Commerce Tools, right, and it will go very well, then we can adjust everything and know what should we expect from other backends. So this was the very beginning. From the start. But then if any of you had the chance to be on our Vue Storefront Summit, you saw how many other integrations we released together with our partners. For now, most of those integrations are basically open source. So there is no enterprise version as we have it, for example, for Commerce Tools, but it's gonna get there, right? And currently for all the other integrations, you basically can still use our cloud, but we do not have such a huge coverage of those features as we have in Commerce Tools integration, for example. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, performance is huge in PWA, and this is definitely something that we want to increase, and hopefully the Core Web Vital update that is coming probably very soon, because it is May already. It's gonna change that, and the promise is that they're gonna look more at this user experience from the UI perspective, at the mobile first design, and not only on how fast your site will load in the first time, right? Because that's not the most optimal thing. And on the end, everything leads into increased conversions. And coming back to, you know, this very little speed updates as we had from 40 to 50, for example, maybe that didn't look that much, but then we have 71% increase in conversion for mobile, right? 131% increase in revenue uplift, right? So those numbers were much better than the front end based on Magento, even though the performance increase by Lighthouse was not that big, right? So we saw that this experience just went so much, and we have case studies that can basically prove it.
I think that, you know, is a very good case in point. So I've always felt that, you know, the tools that you know, so monitor performance is a tick box exercise in terms of does it score highly, but actually there's also a very important measure, which is what's the perceived in, you know, how does it feel when you're using the site, which you can't, you know, no tool is going to give you that kind of measure. And you can have a site that scores quite badly on the tools, but actually feels very nice when you use it and is quite snappy and fast, and that's what matters, right? That's the important thing.
Yeah. So for me, honestly, it's always will be how much did you get in terms of conversion increase and revenue increase, because on the end, this is the two most important metrics. So if I had a very big e-commerce site and I would implement whatever, it doesn't have to be Vue Storefront, anything that I believe would work for me in terms of that, and my Lighthouse score would go from 80 to 10, but my revenue would go up from 1 mil to 1.5.
Happy days.
Why should I care, right? So I think this is what people very often forget about, and they live by this promise: get better performance, and you know, you will be drowned in money. But I think the user experience is the most important focus, and performance is one of a couple of components that will influence that.
Yeah, I think we're also at very early days of PWA, aren't we? We're just, you know, we're still just getting used to it. And at the moment, a lot of the sites still look like traditional websites and feel like traditional websites. And it'll be very interesting to see how that evolves over time, as, you know, people get used to the different ways you can interact and, you know, produce more, you know, richer experiences. So I'm quite excited to see that. One of the things that, you know, when our PWA journey, we kind of, one of the things that really got me interested, particularly about Vue Storefront, was this idea that, you know, totally separating the front end from the back end and having a framework that could work with multiple e-commerce platforms, which, you know, as an agency, you know, would bring us quite a lot of efficiency. You know, we can support four platforms, and you know, it's one skill set from the front end perspective. It's not quite it's not quite there yet, because you've got the main flavors, so Vue 1, Vue 2 or Next, and Shopware PWA. And so my question was like, the main bit I'm really interested is, what's the direction for those things? You know, is all your effort going into 2, and are you going to you know, slowly add more platforms to 2, or are you going to keep maintaining these separate products? You know, what does it look like in terms of roadmap for those different products?
Yeah, that's the question we get a lot. and there is a story behind this. So as we started with Vue Storefront 1, we basically wanted to save Magento merchants. That's all we wanted to do. And this is how we got the growth, right? And after we hit to some level, suddenly, I think we did this product hunt campaign, and it was the very first campaign. And then we got questions from, Shopify merchants, WooCommerce, PrestaShop, all of those different backends. So then we said, okay, cool. Let's see if we can make it very universal. And this is even what I was pitching myself without knowing the technical perspective yet, because my guys were doing the research. But theoretically, yes, that makes sense, right?
Theoretically, yeah.
Exactly.
The reality is it's very hard to do, right?
Exactly. So then when we looked at the architecture and I started to get feedback from my team, they were like, listen, this Vue Storefront 1 won't work. We even tried to make it work with commerce tools. It was terrible. And that was one of the main decisions why we decided to rewrite everything, right? So with Vue Storefront Next, this is becoming a reality right now. And now there is Vue Storefront Next and Shopper, right? So there is a reason why it's not basically Vue Storefront for Shopper, but it's Shopper PWA with Vue Storefront basically underneath, because it's a very native integration, right? Very, very native integration that will work only for Shopper. And obviously, you would be able to migrate some of the UI pieces, but that's it. All of the logic, all of the integrations, the way how Shopper plugin marketplace is created, we are also adapting Shopper PWA to those plugins and making sure that we can still extend it in a way. But from terms of the architecture, we are aligning it with Vue Storefront Next, right? So for the developers that will know how to work with Shopware PWA, it will be very easy to get and start working on Vue Storefront for Magento, Shopify, and commerce tools on the front end. But still, you would need some team members that will understand the backend stuff. But we are trying to unify the front end. We came up with an amazing middleware where we can also migrate the CMSs between platforms, the payment providers. And on the end, we are moving the whole front end part. But obviously, if you are going to move from Magento to, let's say, commerce tools, and you will have checkout.com or agent as a payment provider, it's not like click and works. Like it will be click on the front end part, but you still need to let know commerce tools, hey, it's not Magento anymore, it's commerce tools now, it's you, please connect to this agent, right?
Yeah.
So that's our aim, and this is what we want to do. So as you mentioned, unifying everything and making sure that one agency can just train developers in a specific framework. This is our goal. Like we want to make life much easier, because even as you know, my background in agency, Devante did PIMCore. They afterwards started doing Spartacus for SAP because of Vue Storefront. So AngularJS. And then there were some other frameworks, like many different front-end teams. It's hard to do the knowledge transfer. If you have a lot of developers sitting in one framework, they are becoming better and better and better, right?
Yeah. The more you do, the more you do the same thing, the better you get, and the faster you get. So is that how that's the plan, right? So for Vue 2 is you've got this middleware layer that's basically gonna unify everything. So Magento, commerce tools, Shopware will all eventually, the idea is that they'll plug into that middle layer, which will then translate it to the front end in a unified way.
Precisely. We are still not sure how to work with the Shopper plugins and how to unify that, but the architecture at least will be the same.
I think the plugins are a problem, right? Because not just on every platform, they're all done slightly differently. And I think that's been one of our challenges is in the traditional, when you were delivering a Magento site or a Shopware site, you had a plugin, you dropped in, it didn't take you very long, and a lot of that's with PWA, you've got to rework it. So the initial time you use that plugin, you've got to make it work on the front end. And
exactly.
I think that's the challenge, right? I don't know how, unless you can get the plugin providers to unify as well, to say, okay, they'll do a Vue Storefront that will work with anyone. And I think that's probably Well, I'm very interested to see how that develops. I'm very interested in that discussion as well.
Yeah, so this is really one of our main focuses, right? How to work around plugins and integrations, because we realize that this is the most scary things for anyone that is planning to migrate and start going headless, right? Because before, as you mentioned, click, done, easy. But everything has pros and cons, and I think because we are so early in the headless journey, and there is so many migrations to be done. I don't even know if we're at 1% of the whole e-commerce market that went headless.
You've got a long way to go. You've got a good coverage, and if you can get your community, and this is, I guess, sorry, that's we'll talk about that in a minute. But sorry, I interrupt you.
No, but I was just saying that I believe that as now we have, tons of plugins for monoliths, we're just gonna have tons of plugins for headless, and the ones that are smart are doing it already, right? So I mentioned checkout.com and Edgen. Those guys are sick, like, already with commerce tools, with Shopware, this is almost done. Like I think the payment providers are actually one of the first ones to realize, hey, we need to adopt our plugins to do it, and Molly, Klarna, everyone is following on that pattern. So I'm wondering who will be late to the party, and this is in their interest right now, because if you're gonna go and say, hey, we have APIs, you can integrate with your PWA build, with your headless build, you're good, and this is what merchants that want to go headless will pick. And once you go headless and you start with the certain solution and it works, why would you change that?
No, I think you wouldn't, and that's that key, that middleware layer is the key thing, right? If you can get some unification there, then the plugin providers will be able to make it work.
Exactly.
And one of the things I love the community around Vue Storefront. So we've done quite a few plugins over the course of the projects that we're launching at the moment, and we will plan to release them. We'll not release them as official modules, but put them on GitHub for people to use. And that's what we've found, is that there've been we've used a number of plugins from other agencies who've put it on GitHub, and we've taken that and we've built on it a little bit and changed it a bit to do what we want it to do. And that's been a lot of that's been a good shortcut. And that's the main issue when you're delivering a commercial project, is the time it takes to do those plugins. But over time, that problem's going to go away. It's just going to be a bit of a challenge for the next couple of years, I would have thought.
Yeah, and as you said, it really depends how much community will understand the issue, and stop thinking, oh, I'm gonna wait until the other will do it. Because I always say, if you do something and you put it out there as an open source, or even sell this plugin if you can, right? Like you can tell your merchants, hey, I can develop it for you, let's say 200 hours. But then you can also buy this plugin from me for a cost of 20 or 30% of that, right? And this is really what agencies can do, and build some kind of accelerators. One thing, and the second thing, we saw that the agencies that started putting things out there, when you do the selling part and you run against other agencies, you say, hey, look, we made this plugin, this plugin, this plugin, and this plugin. Everything is open source. People are using it. We know how to do this stuff, right? And you also benefit from this. So I think that the sooner that people will understand that this plugin ecosystem is so wide open, and you can leverage it, because usually it's like the first ones that are to the game are always the winners. And there will be some followers that will come later, but they need to be super good to get in the top play, right? And this is how we approach it as well.
So how is it working with Vue Next? Is it, are you getting the community contributing plugins already, or is it very much an internal focus at the moment?
No, so for commerce tools, we basically did this kind of way. For enterprise version, and as we start with commerce tools, you have this huge pieces of e-commerce that any site needs, right? So we did a lot of integrations with CMS systems, and most of those CMS systems are in Maha lines with us. Then we have payment providers, then we have search providers, and then we have some other third-party services like personalization services and things like that. But in the same time, you have so much other things. And we see now that when we have an agency working on the Magento, they are already delivering some of the features themselves, right? We get a lot of questions about the features that you get with Magento Commerce, but are not part of open source integration. Well, obviously, because we can't do everything at once. And we hope that some of those agencies will deliver. So we already see this happening. On the Magento side, there are two agencies working together, and they are doing amazing job. And they even managed to, increase the level of how awesome the storefront API is by adding additional things to this, and it is open source as well. It was announced on the community on the Vue Storefront Summit, right? So I think it's getting there, and we see more and more traction. And honestly, I believe that now Vue Storefront Next is so much easier to work with than what we had before. I think it's just gonna increase.
And if you do you have any advice for agencies like us? We've done all of our work has been on Vue 1 and Shopware PWA. We are looking to work with commerce tools, but we're not doing it yet. So when would you advise us to move, start moving everything to Vue Next for Magento, Shopware? Is that something that's going to come soon, or do you think we're a way off being able to do that?
Yeah, so I think for Shopware, it's no-brainer, and everyone should be already going for it. It's pretty much production ready. There's a couple of sites that are live and much more under the development. The plugin ecosystem is already increasing, and we also get an agreement with Shopware that we, as Vue Storefront, we're gonna also start developing the plugins ourselves to speed up the community. And we have a list of top plugins, the top used plugins for Shopware standard frontends, and we want to take them and deliver for PWAs as well, right? In terms of Magento, also on Vue Storefront Next, there are some sites that are up and running, and I think that for Vue Storefront 1, some of the plugins that are out there are outdated anyway, because some of the agencies basically don't work with them on an ongoing basis. And those that are, maybe some are not as open source, but agencies just have them themselves. We will, of course, continue to support the Vue Storefront 1, and we are still doing the maintenance, and we are even adding more things, because I think at this point there's almost 400 stores that are live on Vue Storefront 1, so we can't forget about them. But I would start shifting everything towards Vue Storefront Next. And as for me, the best way to go is, take your developers and ask them to build proof of concept for the same customer, VSF1, VSF Next, and ask them what was better, right? And if they can already see during the proof of concept stage that Vue Storefront Next is doing so much better work, but even if some of the plugins are not there yet, the development itself is so much faster and better, you will catch up with those plugins, and then you can contribute and use the time you would have to use with Vue Storefront 1, save it on Next and do the plugin instead. So I think that this should be the direction. And the Vue Storefront Next as a product is fully stable. So as you said, it's just a matter of having those plugins available. But the product itself, it's great.
And the enterprise offering that you've got, or the cloud offerings, is mainly focused on cloud, on commerce tools at the moment.
Yeah, so enterprise is focused on commerce tools and on Magento, because there's a difference between like cloud and enterprise. Enterprise is cloud native, but cloud can be without enterprise as well, right? So we have some other customers that are running on Vue Storefront 1 and are using our cloud. We do have some that are running on Vue Storefront Next and are using our cloud as well.
And so what are the plans for the enterprise offering? Is it you're planning to expand it hugely, or is that going to be your main source of revenue? You've got other revenue drivers coming.
Yeah, so I believe this will be the main one. Of course, besides selling the licenses, we do provide trainings, increase the education on the market. We organize a lot of workshops, but this is not the motivation to make money. It's rather to educate the market and make sure that developers know very well how to work with Vue Storefront. We also sell something that we call support licenses. So when we have bigger customers, they can be open source or based on our cloud, you can get support license, and this support license includes like 2 or 4 or 8 hours monthly support over the year. So we have, shared Slack channel, we have ongoing communication, and this support can go directly for merchants. But we also do have agencies that are buying the support license, and then they can use it across various projects, right? So it's just to have our team available like right now and with very quick responses, instead of going, to GitHub, posting an issue, waiting for someone to reply. But yeah, I mean, the main revenue driver will be the licenses for sure, and cloud offering.
Cloud and enterprise. And is cloud scaled? So in terms of pricing, if you're a merchant, is it aimed at, does it go, what's the measure? Like, how does it go up in price?
Yeah, so there is no ceiling. I mean, if we would have a merchant with, hundreds of millions of page views, I don't even want to think what the price would be, but you can also imagine like what you would have to pay just for hosting. Yeah. And our cloud is not just hosting. There is a lot of monitoring. There is a lot of tools that are, working on increasing the performance. And we are only doing, cloud for Vue Storefront. There is nothing else. So we are not like a hosting company doing Shopper hosting, Magento hosting, everything hosting is not that. It's specifically done for Vue Storefront, and most of the VC money is going for optimizing that. We have a partnership with Google, so we are not using AWS, we are not using OVH, everything based on Google Cloud. And I think in most cases, what we realized over the past 6 months is that merchants actually really appreciate that. We saw a lot of migrations going away from AWS to Google Cloud, because Google Cloud is very neutral. That's first thing. Many merchants see Amazon being their potential competitor, as they can start selling the products of their own that will compete. And the last thing, OVH just burned. So, it's people still remember about that fire, and people are just scared. So that definitely suffered the business. And I think most important, Google means lighthouse. And I believe that, if you are based on Google Cloud, there will be some additional points for your lighthouse score.
I think you're probably right there. And so is the pricing for cloud based on page views?
Yeah, mainly on page views and on the amount of integrations. And in commerce tools, we even went a step beyond, because when we were getting the first customers, we realized that our price, like they are based on the amount of orders that go through the platform. But the more orders, the more page views. So after some point, we realized that our pricing is almost a percentage of what they charge. So we're like, fuck it, like we're just gonna charge a certain percentage of whatever commerce tools license is, right? And it might as well work for the others. It just depends, because even if you look at amount of orders, I think that's very fair kind of pricing, because I think Magento is still looking at your revenue, right? And let's say you are selling Rolexes online. We do have Swatch, we do have Zenith watches, and we have some other very luxury brands going on, and they sell 5-6 watches a month, but the revenue can be insane. And in the same time, you have a very low margin company that is doing a lot of orders, but the margin is not that high, right?
Yeah,
so
I agree. I think it's a fairer way of measuring, of someone paying for what they're actually using.
Exactly. And I think commerce tools did amazing job in that, and their pricing is very fair. So they are not looking at the amount of orders only, but they also look at the margin levels. So sometimes the customer with higher margins but lower orders will still pay a little bit more. But on the end, it's like the percentage per order of how much you have to give back to commerce tools per each order that you are making. And I think it's very fair. So after some time to realize, looking at the page views, asking for Google Analytics reports and tracking it is just adding more complexity to the whole sales process. And I like to make things as easy as possible. And we just say, you negotiate with commerce tools. Once you have the price, come to us. We're going to charge you the certain percentage.
I think merchants appreciate simplicity. If you can go to them with a simple price, it's a much easier sell.
I mean, especially in headless, when suddenly you are not speaking only to commerce tools, Magento or Salesforce, but you also speak to the front end, CMS, search, and you have a lot of vendors. With each vendor, negotiate price, sign a contract. Yeah, it's scary. So I just want to make it easy.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the drawbacks of a kind of multiple vendor solution, is that you do have all these different contracts. For those customers who are Shopware or Magento using cloud, do you find that they're typically hosting the back end somewhere else? Are they doing it themselves, or is there a kind of typical use case that you see people doing? Or do you recommend that merchants host the back end somewhere specifically?
No, this is totally up to them. The thing is, we always get questioned, why can't we host it? And we are like, well, because we're hosting only Vue Storefront.
Yeah.
And Vue Storefront is not the backend. So for some, it takes some time to explain what are the benefits of doing that way. And yeah, I mean, they can do it however they want. Of course, I can always recommend going with Google Cloud, because I think they have one of the best cloud solutions on the market right now, also in terms of pricing and the support you are getting. But on the end, it's totally up to the customers.
Yeah. Okay, so final question: what's your favorite site? What's your favorite PWA, or your top 5 PWA sites? If I had to give someone, these are the sites that that you should go and look at as real showcases PWA, which ones are they?
Yeah, so for sure the latest Zenith watches, if you're gonna have a look at the UI and the user experience they created, it's amazing. There was a case from Shopware based on PWA, very Tomek, do you remember the name, and can you maybe send it to me on Slack so I will have a look, because I forgot the name, but it's such a cool site.
And is that the Italian company? It's
yeah.
It begins with V, right? The name.
Yeah, it's vintageria.it, right?
Yeah.
It's such a great site. I had so much fun when I had a look at this. There was another one coming on Shopper PWA out of Poland. It's called Jope ME. They have also very cool UI, because it's like organic cosmetic brands, but they hire artists to make like drawings on the bottles, right? So the whole site is super friendly, and it looks just really, really cool. In terms of other Magento sites, I think Zadig and Voltaire put a lot of work into working with this luxury fashion, and working with the UI you are getting. So there was a lot of videos, a lot of nice going from one side to another animations, and yeah, I would say that those are definitely on my top list in terms of that. And then in terms of results, one that surprised me the most, it's Garten und Freizeit, I think, from Germany.
Yeah,
they've sent us the report for the case study, and I saw 680% increase in organic traffic, and I was like, wait, it's not a mistake, right? It's 68, not 680. No, it's 680, and they've sent us the Google Analytic reports, and yeah, they had 680% increase in the organic search, and afterwards we realized they were all over German media. Everyone was talking about them because they had the huge spike in revenue. So imagine you are selling the gardening equipment in the middle of COVID in winter, and you get your huge spike in sales. So I think that is the one that surprised me the most in terms of the case study that we put on our website. It was just insane.
That's a pretty good case study, and that will allow a lot of merchants have some concerns around the impact on SEO. My view is like yours, that actually it'll be a positive impact, particularly when the algorithm moves more towards user experience. I think that's when it will really.
Exactly. We are really waiting for that, and I think for me it's the most awaited update for the core Web Vitals is the fact that they're gonna start looking at this user experience, and I think this is where PWA sites will get even more benefits, because the fact that you are getting this PWA mark, it will already give you some additional points. So I think, yeah, it's going to be very interesting once it's up and running and we can see some additional case studies. And I think that's also super important, that every time merchants do something innovative with you or with any other agencies, they should really help working on those case studies, because we can call them like early innovators, and early innovators are those that are basically influencing the decisions of the other people. And without case studies and without showing that their results are better and they started making more money, it will be very hard to speed up the standardization of PWAs, right? So this is maybe from me to all of the merchants out there. Please do case studies with your agencies and with us.
We'll certainly be doing case studies with all of us, and I always think that the other bit that's interesting about case study is it's not just one part of your operation that makes a difference, right? It's, you know, yes, it's partly PWA, but it's also what else you're doing. You know, what's your total tech stack? You know, what agencies are you using? Who's doing your PPC, your page, your organic, your social? So our case studies are going to be like, what's your total story? What does it look like? And what, you know, what are the contributing factors that have made it work for you? Because I think that's also a very interesting story for other merchants to see. Oh, well, you know, look at that tech stack, look at those solutions that they deployed successfully. Is a really, you know, interesting and useful piece of information for everyone else.
Yep, exactly.
Well, look, thank you very much for your time. It's been really interesting. My final question is, as an agency, I'd like us to be more involved and understand a bit more about how agencies can contribute more. So do you have any any advice for me in terms of, or any other agencies who may be listening and wanting to get involved into, how do you want the community to contribute? How do you want people to get involved, and what's gonna, you know, what would you like to see from the community?
Yeah, so I think definitely you know, involving us more on the sales process, and basically coming to our doors asking for sales materials, marketing materials, all of the things that can help every single agency to promote the concept of PWA and headless in a better way. Because for us, it's extremely hard to, you know, make sure that we are just not big enough to have enough people you know, responsible for the certain markets. Hopefully, once we're gonna have more paying customers, because customers is one thing, paying customers, we can start growing the team and focus more, and we can go more with initiatives to the customers. But look, guys, you came to us and we are talking, right? I will always find time for something like that, because I know it's gonna help others to make up the decision, listen to the story, and at least start thinking of it, right? So I think this is important, like being active in this side, and then the other side, basically being ambassadors yourself. So whenever you see that it would be a fit for your clients, talk to them and be honest, right? Say that maybe it's not the most cost efficient at this time as it will be in 1 year from now, but you will benefit, and you can use the case studies from our side. And the fact that you were not the one that implemented for Zadig and Volter or Tallyway, it is still the result of other merchants using Vue Storefront, right? Yeah. So I would also tell not to be afraid of that. And the second thing is feedback. So if your developers are complaining about something, don't keep it in your four walls. Go to Slack and bitch about the code and, you know, complain about it, because this is how we can improve. If we don't get this feedback, we can make our product better. And you know, the feedback is for the whole community. It's not only for us. So it might be that one agency is complaining about something, but the other agency, you know, solved it, exchange. I think also that, you know, too much competition between agencies on the side of open source, and I'm thinking, what for, right? Yeah. On the open source, you shouldn't compete. If there is one agency working on the plugin and you need that plugin as well, call them up and be like, hey, I will give you my developer part-time, you will give your developer part-time. Let's make a plugin, open source it, put it on Vue Storefront repo, and you guys will be mentioned as contributors, right? So I think this is also quite important, to forget about competition on the open source level, because open source is for everyone. and start contributing more. And this will just speed up the adoption time. It will be easier for you to sell the implementation because it'll become cheaper and cheaper, right? And yeah, and more happy customers. So I think this is probably the biggest advice from me.
I couldn't agree more. That's definitely, I think it always pains me when I think about some of the, in the past, some of like how many agencies have done exactly the, spent, 3 weeks doing exactly the same thing that we've just done.
It's just money out of the window. There is no point
everyone.
to that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, Patrick, thank you very much for your time. I've really enjoyed speaking to you. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Thank you for having me, and good luck with the implementations. Hopefully we can get even more case studies soon.
I hope so too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.